everybody, this is Diane Lane here, and boy do we ever have a webcast for you. Today, we're going to be talking about the electric car.
Woo! The electric in the air!
Today on Merritt News Network. Whether they are powered by electricity or combustible fuel, automated vehicles are extremely important machines in our world today. The ability for people to own and drive a car has become almost essential in the modern North American lifestyle. For many, having a car to drive is as important as having a home. Ask anyone on the street if they think having a car is important to them. I love my vehicle and I wouldn't have it any other way.
I love my car so much, I wouldn't give it up for the world.
As many already know, global warming is significantly heating up our planet, and we are slowly starting to see the impact it's creating. The cause, someone may ask? Well, the answer is you. Me? That's right, you. Human activity is one of the main causes of global warming. If we really care about saving our planet, and we want it to be effective, the participation of all members of society is required. We need to start somewhere, and our method of transportation is a good way to start. It may sound like an extreme at first, but in the long run, it'll create a positive outcome for the world. Hopefully within the next few minutes, this webcast will perhaps change your mind about switching to a better, cleaner, and eventually a more enjoyable lifestyle. Give it up to reporter Sally James.
Thank you, Diane. Before we get into a whole bunch of detail about the electric car itself, we need to have a clear understanding as to the consequences and negative aspects that the standard emission car can cause.
Motor vehicles account for 34% of nitrogen dioxide released into the atmosphere. They also account for 51% of the carbon monoxide, 10% of the particulate, and 33% of the carbon dioxide. Nitrogen dioxide is a cause of acid rain and increases the growth of algae. Particulate, also called soot, causes haze and pollutes groundwater. Carbon monoxide is a poisonous gas capable of causing death in large doses, headaches, loss of breath, and nausea in smaller doses. Carbon dioxide is a major contributor to global warming. Cars pollute water sources in a variety of ways. One is through a runoff of automotive fluids, brake dust, de-icing chemicals, and oil. Another is through leaking pumps at a gas station. Improper disposal of motor oil is also a cause of groundwater contamination. Gasoline is a byproduct of crude oil, which comes from the remains of fossils of plants and animals that inhabited the earth many years ago. Cars also use up to a large percentage of available fossil fuels. The United States produces only 10% of the world's petroleum, which using 26%. Light trucks and cars account for 43% of petroleum burned each year. It is now common knowledge that our worldwide fuel supplies are being depleted at an alarming rate. There are about 250 million cars in the United States. They account for much of the noise in major cities. And now let's have a look at the electric car itself. An electric car is a car powered by an electric motor rather than a gasoline engine. Electric vehicle motors are powered by what is called a fuel cell. A fuel cell is an electrochemical energy conversion device that converts the chemicals hydrogen and oxygen into water, and in the process it produces electricity. Electrical vehicles open the door to many environmental benefits. including better air quality from the use of very low and zero emission vehicles and reduced on-road vehicle noise. Electric vehicles can provide potentially significant reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. The transportation sector is one of the largest sources of greenhouse gas emissions, and significant emissions reductions will be needed in this sector. Electric vehicles can make a contribution due to the high efficiency of electric motors. Additionally, over 75% of electricity is generated from energy sources that produce low greenhouse gas emissions, hydronuclear and wind. Over time, the electricity generation mix is likely to produce fewer greenhouse gas emissions as more renewable and other clean energy generations comes on. Steam and coal-fired generation plants are closed. There are two main benefits of electric vehicles: a quiet ride and an increased convenience for urban commuting. First, the casual observer would probably have no idea that a car is electric, except the only thing that would clue them in is that the car provides for a very quiet ride. There are no engine noises or roars even when you have to floor the gas, just an eerie, but whirling sounds increases in pitch. When electric cars are run very low speeds, they are essentially silent. Second, there are many conveniences electric cars offer. Since electricity is already delivered to homes and businesses, trips to the gas station can be reduced or eliminated for some types of electric vehicles, saving on time as well as cost. As well, the maintenance of electric cars is also much easier to handle. Simply put, there are less moving parts and fewer things that can go wrong. With traditional engines, there is constant moving under the hood. With an electric vehicle, much more is stationary. Only the main motor's drive shaft and the car's transmission spin. Much less will wear down from overuse. For example, at a conventional car, eventually all the belts in the engine will wear out and need to be replaced, unless they snap out on you and leave you stranded. No such thing in electric cars. Want to go electric? Another advantage of battery power is that the technology in these vehicles have come a long way. A final convenience worthwhile noting is that although you cannot drive hundreds and hundreds of miles on these batteries, you can travel fairly long distances, upwards of 100 miles or so. However, once you have maxed out your battery for the day, it must be recharged before you can go back on the road. Many forward-thinking workplaces now offer electric car charging stations. Charging the battery back to full strength is a quick and easy, especially if you have several hours to let it sit. You simply plug in the car, just as you would plug in any other electronic device. From an aesthetic style perspective, there are many trendy makes and models of electric cars available on the market for the average consumer to choose from. The most popular models of electric cars built with no tailpipe are the Tesla Roadster and the Nissan Leaf. Check them out if you're in the market to purchase a car. Everything has its negatives, and some of the disadvantages of electric cars are limited travel distance, access to electricity to charge the battery, and safety issues. First, probably one of the greatest disadvantages of owning a car that is fully electric is that they cannot travel the 300 miles plus that regular cars can. Even though the battery technology has advanced greatly during the past decade, it still has some limits. One limitation is the range, which would make it impossible to take an electric car on a long vacation or a road trip, where you do nothing but drive all day. Any trip that is over 100 miles is currently out of range for an electric vehicle, but expect things to change within the 5 years or so. Also, charging the battery may also present a problem for people that live in an apartment or park on the street. An electric car needs to be plugged in at night, and if you do not have an area to plug it in, then it will either simply not work or it will be too cumbersome to do so. Like dragging an extension cord across the sidewalk and having your neighbor remove it or trip over it, This is a major disadvantage for people who live in large cities and ironically who would be best suited for electric cars. However, better initiatives in urban planning can certainly make a headway in solving this issue in our cities for the future. As for current solutions, although a pure electric vehicle has the unprecedented advantage of not using gasoline and not causing tailpipe emissions, we have to acknowledge that they may not be practical in every situation. The plug-in hybrid vehicle may be the best particular compromise that currently exists for most customers. A hybrid car uses electricity for short trips and then switches to using gasoline only. when it is needed. The Chevy Volt is a very popular hybrid car, which can run as either an electric car or as a gas fuel mode. Finally, current safety procedures are a concern with electric vehicles. Emergency officials fear that current safety procedures designed for accident scenes may not be very appropriate when dealing with electric cars that have high voltage batteries instead of gasoline. The concern is electrocution more than explosion. Some concerns of first responders are determining if the engine is off or on, and how to disconnect the batteries quickly and safely. However, the fuel cell batteries in electric cars actually take impact better than a fully made gas car and can help even more in the event of an accident. From an economic focus, electric cars are met with both advantages and disadvantages. The Ontario Ministry of Transport has stated that current hybrid vehicles can reduce fuel costs by 20 to 40% compared to conventional vehicles. Although this fact is encouraging, the hybrid car owner is still subject to high spiking gas prices. The main economic advantage of the electric car is that since the electricity prices are relatively stable, electric car consumers are cushioned from large gasoline price fluctuations caused by international pressures and disruptions in oil supply and the inevitable depletion of fossil fuel resources. A current economic disadvantage to buying an electric car is price. The past year, electric car prices may not have made sense financially, even though they are better on the environment. Just like any other car, the more options you get, the more the prices go up, even though there is no gas expenses involved, and down the road, a consumer will reap and benefit of low ownership costs. Most purchasers have been willing to fork up the price up front. However, with that said, since 2010, the federal government and most provincial governments have built tax rebate incentives into the price of electric or hybrid cars. In most cases, the amount of money saved is fairly significant. The normal tax rebate for buying an electric car is $7,500. Finally, although the initial price of an electric vehicle was currently higher than a price of a conventional vehicle, today price premiums have declined since the technology of the electric car was first introduced. For the next generation, with the advent of more electric vehicles becoming more affordable, the electric car will no doubt become the environmental, social, and economically sensible choice.
And that's a wrap. You heard it first on Merritt News Network.